Today I'm going to show you how to weave in your ends. There's no right way. I want to just start by saying that. There is no specifically right way to do this, but there are some tips and tricks that you learn just from experience and doing it often. So first of all, I want to show you is weaving in the end of your cast on edge. So this is the edge that I cast on for this 2x2 ribbing, and I have the end here. And the first thing I want to do is take this end, put it onto my little tapestry needle, and then I'm going to try to hide it along the edge here. So if you see the shape of the bumps along this edging, I want to sort of mimic that with this tail. So I'm going to follow. If I take this here, you can see if I wrap it this way, it kind of mirrors what was already happening along the edge. So I'm going to do that, insert my needle here, feed it through, and pull it sort of cinched tight. Then I want to find a pathway to follow along the stitches. So here I've got a little stockinette V. So I'm going to insert my needle through that V, pull it through, and then go back in to the top of that V, sort of like a duplicate stitch. So now that that is blended in and the edge matches the rest of the edging there, I'm going to take my tail on the inside and insert it into one leg of the stockinette V's on the inside of the ribbing, and I'm going to twist it along that bar, so going in on the right side and out on the left of the edge of that stitch all the way down. This is a really quick and easy way to get a lot of a tail hidden very quickly on a project and on the wrong side. So when I pull that in and then kind of stretch it out a little bit, you can see it just ends up looking like that edge of the stitch there. So from there, I can turn back on that row of stitches, insert my needle along the same pathway that the original stitches were, and then I can actually repeat that on the other side of that bar of stockinette V's. So just by catching that edge one at a time with my needle, it keeps everything on the back of my work. You won't see it at all from the front. It's completely hidden on the front side, on the right side. And then that would actually be enough right there to have hidden that entire tail. So I got my little scissors, and you can see here when I like to kind of tug the stitch a little farther before, kind of cinch it up before I cut it, and I'll show you why in a second. What I mean is I just take that tail that I just wove through these stitches here, and I just kind of pull it a little tighter. Then when I cut it real close to the edge there, I can give it a little tug back this direction, and it just fades into the stitches. So now you can see it's completely hidden on the right side of your work, and it's a real quick way to hide some edges, some ends on the inside of your work. Next, I'll show you how to hide the ends when you've joined your yarn on the inside of a project. And so when I join a new yarn, or even if it's the same color but just a new ball to a project, I usually will just tie them together with a simple little slip knot around the previous color. That way I have a little tension to work from. But when I go to weave that end in, I'm going to take that little knot out. Now I have those yarns untied. You can see there's a little bit of a hole there where I joined, and in order to get rid of that, I need to actually cross these two over each other so that they connect that space like a normal stitch. So once I cross them over each other this way, I will take my tapestry needle again, get my yarn, and I do, this might be helpful for some of you, I take the yarn around the needle like this, pinch it, and then with that little pinched loop, shove it through to get it threaded. I don't know why, but that's always worked for me. So now what I want to do is find the pathway that this previous stitch would have made. So it looks like it would come up from where this blue is coming out. So you see this yarn here is kind of the extension of the previous stitch where it would have been. So I'm going to just insert my needle here and pull that pink through there. And I'm just using a contrasting color here, so it's a little easier for you to see what I'm doing. But as you can see, that completely closed up the hole there. You can't see it from the outside anymore. And then what I would do is just follow the path of the stitches from the previous row. And so that means I'm going to come up through here. I'm following that blue thread at the moment. And then come back down on the other side and into the lower bump. Again, I'm just going to follow the stitches. Using the purl bumps as my guides. And as you can see from the right side, it's completely hidden behind the fabric. So even though I'm crossing a pink over a blue, it's all on the wrong side of the work. So it's going to be invisible on the front side. So I'm still just following that blue. This right here, this blue purl bump, is the stitch that I'm mimicking here. I'm sort of doing a duplicate stitch of the purl bumps. So I'm going to come down. If I open this up a little bit, you can see the path of this blue strand here, and that's what I'm following. It comes down and it goes into this lower purl bump and through. So I would do this for a little bit longer here, back and forth following the pathway of the previous stitches on the back, and then when I wanted to really get the end of this tail secured somewhere, I would find a nice tight little spot to weave it through. So for example, I would come in here, push it through, and kind of weave it back and forth tightly for a couple of stitches. Pull that. Give it a little tug. Make sure I can't see anything from the front side. And then again, pull it kind of tight to cinch it before you snip. So I'm going to snip it here. And then when I spread, see this little tail, little bump right there? When I spread it down, it kind of sucks in behind. And you can't see it on the front. So that's how I weave in a tail in the middle of a project. Now I will show you how I do the edging after I've bound off. So first of all, this is the end of my bind off here. I'm going to pull my yarn all the way through, and then whatever type of bind off you use, you want to sort of match it when you weave in the end. So what I mean by that is, if you see here, this bind off has these sort of stacked V's along the edge. It almost looks like a crochet chain, and it continues over here on this other side with the V's, but there's a gap here where the bind off is separated. So I'm going to take my tail, get it back on my needle. So I'm going to mimic, like I said, the shape of the edging. So I'm going to come in to the V on the opposite side here, pull my yarn through until it actually closes up that gap. And then I'm going to insert it back into the top of the V on the other side, and it will create what looks like another edge stitch that continues those V's. Now I still have a little bit of a gap here, and so I'm actually going to come in and use my tail to close that up. So I will just come in behind a couple of stitches here, actually right here, pull my yarn through, and that's going to close up the gap there. Now it looks like a seamless edge using the tail to close it in. From here I would thread the tail back through the wrong side of the work and weave it down along the purl bumps like I showed you previously. That's all for today. I hope this video was helpful for you. If you enjoyed it, please be sure to subscribe and also give it a thumbs up so that you can see more videos like this from me in the future. Thanks so much, and I'll see you next time. Bye.